I think it's something that people more and more really thirst for, just having honest conversation that is not encumbered by the usual conventions of broadcast media. I mean, the absurd time limits where you see on CNN, for instance, where they're attempting to talk about something of civilizational importance, and you see, some world expert on whatever it is, climate change or the threat of war between the U.S. and China, or whatever the moment is that needs to be talked about. You see such a person given 6 minutes to say something of value before they cut to a commercial. It's just an insane way to try to make sense of what's going on in the world. And people have become increasingly sensitized to that. It's just that there's something, especially when you're looking at when you're talking about controversial issues where people have, where it has more the character of a debate, right? Well, then people come to the usual formats with, their canned talking points, and they're just desperately trying to get out some pre-prepared paragraphs, which under threat of interruption, and there's no possibility of good faith dialogue, right? There's the idea that anyone's mind is going to change by virtue of what happens in that conversation that's just, there's not even the pretense that that's possible, right? So it's not, in truth, it's not actually a dialogue. You're asked to witness parallel monologues or serial monologues. So people are, I think, right to be dissatisfied with that. And the podcasting is, on some level, it's exactly like radio. I mean, it's essentially radio on demand, but it's different in at least two crucial respects. One is that most podcasts, some function differently. I don't know how yours functions. I don't know if you impose a strict time limit on yourself, but many podcasts, certainly mine, don't have any notion of how long a podcast should last, right? So some of my podcasts are an hour, or some are, I think the longest has been close to 4 hours, right? And it's entirely dictated by just the dynamics of the conversation and the needs of the moment. And so not having the burden of a ticking clock or a production, a schedule that you have to slot into, really does change things, even when the final conversation winds up being more or less just as long as a radio conversation would have been, right? So knowing that you only have an hour is different than just having a conversation that only lasts an hour. And it's different all the way through. I mean, literally every moment is different in my experience, both as a host and as a participant, because when you have no time limit, being interrupted is not a threat to you ultimately saying what you need to say. So you have the freedom to digress and let the other person digress. You have the freedom to let the other person attribute views to you that you don't hold, because you know that you have the time to clean up the mess. The conversation can breathe in a way that it never can in normal formats on television and even on even long-form radio. So it's unusual in that respect. I think people appreciate the difference. The other big difference for certain podcasts, my own in particular, is that the business model is different, and podcasts are far less vulnerable to the pressures many legacy media outlets feel to public changes in public sentiment, right? So the idea that you're going to come under pressure and get canceled for something you said or speculated about or didn't make clear, or is far less fraught. It's not to say that you can't stir up controversy, inadvertently or otherwise, but it's a far better defended medium in terms of being able to think out loud without having to be worried that you're going to pay an unrecoverable penalty for it.